Frank Hayes was an American jockey whose story has become one of the most unusual and somber tales in the history of horse racing. Born in 1901, Hayes was relatively unknown in the equestrian world, and in fact, his main profession was that of a horse trainer and stableman rather than a full-time rider. At that time, horse racing was a highly competitive sport with countless jockeys and horses vying for fame and fortune. For someone like Frank, whose days were mostly spent tending to horses and performing behind-the-scenes work, the opportunity to ride in a real race was both rare and precious. In June 1923, Frank received a chance that would change his life. He was asked to ride a horse named Sweet Kiss in a steeplechase at Belmont Park in New York. Sweet Kiss was not a favored horse, having odds stretched far against her, and Frank himself had little experience as a professional jockey. Hoping to seize his moment, he accepted the offer and underwent an intense weight loss regimen, reportedly losing over 10 pounds in a remarkably short period to meet the strict requirements set for jockeys. Race day arrived, drawing a crowd of enthusiastic spectators to the track. Frank, perhaps nervous yet determined, mounted Sweet Kiss. The starting bell rang and the horses charged from the gates, thundering towards the first jump. The crowd cheered as Sweet Kiss, carrying Frank in his first ever major race, set a steady pace. To the surprise of those watching, Sweet Kiss began to surge forward. Obstacle after obstacle, the pair cleared each jump with remarkable synergy. Frank, though lacking the polished form of more experienced jockeys, gave everything he had. As they approached the final stretch, Sweet Kiss pulled ahead, the finish line fast approaching. It was in this final stretch, with the crowd on their feet and excitement cresting, that the most remarkable and tragic twist of Frank Hayes' story unfolded. Sweet Kiss surged over the line, winning the race by a head. The crowd erupted in celebration of the unlikely victory. But as trainers and officials approached to greet Frank and his horse, they noticed that Frank was slumped in the saddle, motionless. It became apparent that something was terribly wrong. To the shock and sorrow of all present, Frank Hayes was pronounced dead. He had suffered a fatal heart attack sometime during the final part of the race. Yet, astonishingly, his body had remained in the saddle, upright and balanced enough that he crossed the finish line ahead of the others. Frank Hayes thus became the only known jockey in history to win a race after dying, a fact that has rendered his story legendary in both the annals of horse racing and tales of the unexpected. In the aftermath, the racing world was stunned. Newspaper headlines reported on the remarkable victory mingled with the sadness of his untimely death. Many speculated on what might have caused his passing. Some cited the intense pressure Frank put on himself in the days leading up to the race, his rapid weight loss, and the raw nerves of a first-time rider at such a grand event. Even so, his dedication and determination left a lasting impression. Sweet Kiss, the mare who carried Frank to victory, was nicknamed Sweet Kiss of Death from that day on. According to some rumors, she never raced again, as her owners believed the mysterious and tragic circumstances of that victory meant she was unlucky, or perhaps even cursed. The details of Sweet Kiss's later life remain shrouded in rumor, but her legacy is forever entwined with Frank's. The story of Frank Hayes is, in many ways, about more than a single race. It is about the hopes and dreams of those who often live in the background, supporting the stars while rarely stepping into the spotlight themselves. Frank, a stable hand and trainer, seized his one chance to shine, and in doing so, etched his name into history in a manner no one could have foreseen. His humble beginnings and determination to race against the odds inspire a sense of respect and admiration. Today, the story of Frank Hayes prompts reflection, not only on the risks and unpredictable nature of horse racing, but also on the dedication and heart that drive individuals to chase their dreams, whatever the odds or obstacles. His death, tragically timed at the very moment of his greatest triumph, carries a sense of poignancy that continues to resonate nearly a century later. The sport of horse racing has always celebrated those who take daring leaps, both literal and metaphorical. For the thousands who mount spirited horses and thunder down racetracks, there is a constant reminder of the precarious balance between glory and risk, jubilation and sorrow. Frank Hayes's life and death serve as a unique symbol of both. While he is often remembered as the jockey who won after dying, a more enduring legacy comes from the realization that, at least for one brilliant moment, Frank reached the pinnacle of his field through spirit and perseverance. Stories like Frank's endure because they evoke in us a profound sense of the unpredictability of life. They teach us that sometimes fate intervenes in the most unforeseen of ways, changing ordinary moments into legendary tales that persist far beyond their time. The dusty records of the 1923 Belmont Park race live on in memory, not because of the purse, the odds, or the horse, but because of the extraordinary fate of the man who rode to victory at the very edge of life and death. In remembering Frank Hayes, we are reminded to recognize the contributions of those who often labor in the shadows, whose dreams may seem distant, yet who are capable of astonishing achievement. His story, sad yet oddly triumphant, continues to be recounted wherever tales of resilience, fate, and the spirit of competition are shared. Through the decades, jockeys have come and gone, horses have risen and retired, but the name Frank Hayes retains its place, a testament to the wild, unpredictable ride that is both horse racing and life itself.